The Vellum Void did not travel through the vacuum so much as it exhaled its way across the silence. It was a vessel of staggering, morbid ambition, a generation ship whose hull was not forged from titanium or lead, but grown from the translucent, opalescent dermis of leviathans birthed in vats. Through this parchment skin, the stars did not twinkle. They throbbed like inflamed nerves against a bruised sky. Inside, the atmosphere was thick, a pressurized memory gas known as the mnemosine miasma. It was a heavy, amber-tinted fog that carried the aromatic weight of unwashed lace, cold iron, and the musk of 1,000 dead ancestors. To breathe was to trespass. Every inhalation brought the tactile hallucination of a founder's grief, the phantom sting of a slap from a mother dead 3 centuries, the icy weight of a wedding ring lost in a war on a planet whose name had been purged from the logs. Elias Thorne, the ship's threnody botanist, stood in the central arboretum, his throat a map of silver scars and pulsating indigo light. He was a man of Victorian posture, clad in a frock coat of moth-eaten velvet, his fingers stained with the iridescent ichor of the vesper lark, a bird that had not flown in the skies of Earth for a millennium. On the porcelain table before him lay the bird's neural filaments, glowing with a dying bioluminescent rhythm. With the precision of a watchmaker and the cruelty of a taxidermist, Elias peeled back the skin of his own neck. He did not flinch. The memory gas was thick today, vibrating with the collective terror of the ship's first mutiny. He felt the phantom sensation of a rope tightening around his neck, a ghost memory of the first captain's execution, but he used the sensation to steady his hand. "Archive 704, he rasped, his voice a dry rattle of parchment. "The Calyptura of the southern reaches, language, chromatic sibilance, meaning the morning of a sun that never rose."
He took the glowing filaments and grafted them directly onto his exposed vocal cords. The agony was symphonic. As the bird's neurons fused with his own, Elias's jaw unhinged. He did not scream. He sang. The melody was a jagged, polyphonic wail that defied human geometry. It was a sound of glass breaking in a cathedral of water. As the song spilled from his throat, the surrounding flora began to writhe. The lament lilies in their glass jars turned a bruised purple, their petals curling into the shape of human ears to better drink in the sound. Ferns uncoiled like rusted springs, their fronds hardening into jagged obsidian. This was Elias's burden, to be the living reliquary of the extinct, to house the ghosts of voices that had no business being heard by the living. He was the ghost in the machine, but the machine was his own body, and the ghost was a chorus of 1,000 dead wings. "Master Thorne," a voice drifted through the amber fog. Elias ceased his song. The sudden silence was more violent than the music. He turned to see Malthus, the archsurgeon of the Heliopolis. The cultist wore robes of cured skin, and his eyes were hidden behind goggles of smoked quartz. "The stars are weeping, Elias," Malthus said, his voice trembling with a terrifying fervor. "The panopticon is closing its eyes." Elias looked up through the translucent ceiling of the ship. The constellations were changing. They were no longer distant points of nuclear fire. They were shifting, narrowing, vast multi-dimensional pupils that spanned light years, now contracting in an agonizing blink. "You call it a god," Elias said, coughing up a fleck of glowing blue phlegm, "but you treat it like a patient." "It is a diseased entity," Malthus hissed, stepping closer. "We have observed the great eye for generations. It is cataracts of nebulae and glaucoma of dark matter. It looks upon the universe and sees only its own decay. We, the cosmic surgeons, shall grant it the mercy of blindness."
The cult had spent
decades constructing the Scalpel satellite. It was a jagged, needle-like construct of cold brass and forbidden geometry, designed to be launched into the very center of the galactic pupil. They believed that by cataracting the universe, shutting the eyes of the entity, they would free humanity from the burden of being watched. They would finally be alone in the dark, free from the ancestral traumas that the stars reflected back into their lungs. "You will kill the light," Elias warned. "We will perfect the silence," Malphas countered. A sudden tremor rocked the Vellum Void. It was not a mechanical shudder, but a biological spasm. The skin hull of the ship groaned, the translucent flesh rippling as if something outside had touched it with an ice-cold hand. On the monitors, the Scalpel satellite launched. It was a silver streak against the amber nebula. It pierced the center of the Great Eye, the star known as Alpha Centauri, and for a moment, the universe held its breath. Then, the weeping began. It did not start as light. It started as weight. The stars did not go dark. They liquefied. From the heights of the celestial sphere, black, viscous tears of liquid gravity began to spill. It fell in shimmering, oily curtains, heavier than lead, more suffocating than the deep ocean. "What have you done?" Elias whispered, falling to his knees as the gravity of the room trebled. We gave it a wound," Malphas stammered, his quartz goggles cracking under the sudden pressure. The liquid gravity hit the Vellum Void. The skin hull screamed, a sound of stretching parchment about to tear. The memory gas in the air condensed instantly, turning into a thick black syrup that tasted of 1,000 years of unwashed funerals. The tactile hallucinations became physical. Elias felt the weight of every ancestor who had ever died on this ship pressing down on his shoulders, their skeletal hands reaching out of the very air to drag him into the floorboards. The ship was no longer a vessel. It was a drowning lung. Elias crawled toward the central dais of the Arboretum. Around him, the plants were transforming into instruments of torture. The lament lilies were exploding under the pressure, spraying a nectar that smelled of ancient blood. He knew what he had to do. The machine was failing. The biological ghost of the ship was being crushed by the sorrow of the universe. The god was crying, and its tears would flatten the earth below into a disk of silent meat. He reached for the jar containing the final threnody, the neural filaments of the phoenix strike, a bird that had supposedly sung the world into being and would one day sing it to its end. It was a forbidden graft, one that promised to incinerate the host's nervous system. He jammed the glowing white-hot filaments into his throat. The pain was a revelation. His vision flared into a blinding Victorian white, the color of bleached bone and lace. He stood, despite the liquid gravity that threatened to snap his femurs. He opened his mouth, and the ghost in the machine took full control. It was not a song. It was a systemic override. Elias's voice bypassed the air and spoke directly to the atoms of the ship. He sang the language of the void, a non-human frequency that resonated with the translucent skin of the hull. The Vellum Void began to pulse in sync with his heart. The skin hull thickened, turning from parchment to a deep ossified horn, shielding the inhabitants from the crushing weight of the weeping stars. But he didn't stop there. He turned his voice upward, toward the bleeding eye of the universe.
He sang the history of every bird that had ever gone extinct. He sang the trills of the dodo, the clicking of the passenger pigeon, the haunting low-frequency hum of the leviathans that once swam in the clouds of Jupiter. He projected the collective memory of the Vellum Void, all the births, the deaths, the tea parties in the shadow of the engines, the secret kisses in the corridors of skin, and he flung it at the weeping god. The liquid gravity slowed. The black tears began to crystallize in the vacuum, turning into a belt of dark diamonds that orbited the ship. In the Arboretum, Malphas was a puddle of crushed bone and velvet, but Elias Thorne stood, a pillar of incandescent blue light. His skin was translucent now, his own veins becoming the neural filaments of the birds he had archived. He was no longer a botanist, he was the song itself. The ghost had finally consumed the machine. As the Vellum Void drifted through the sea of crystallized sorrow, the atmosphere cleared. The memory gas settled into a gentle silver mist. For the first time in centuries, the inhabitants of the ship did not feel the trauma of their ancestors. They felt only a profound, echoing peace, the silence that follows a long overdue cry. Elias looked down at his hands. They were fading, turning into the iridescent feathers of a bird that had never existed. He looked out at the earth, now shrouded in a veil of gravity glass, beautiful and terrible in its new, frozen weight. The stars were still there, but they were different now. They weren't eyes anymore. They were scars. Elias opened his mouth to speak his own name, but all that came out was a single, perfect note of a song that would never end. He was the archive, he was the ghost, and the ship, breathing softly in the dark, was finally at rest, a cathedral of Stin sailing through a universe that had finally learned how to close its eyes without dying.